Hope you're all doing well tonight. My name is Rushi. I am a career advisor from the Career Center. We're up on the 3rd floor of this building, and we are so excited to have you here for the, this is actually the 10th year anniversary of having these sessions for the international opportunities and the career pathways here. And really excited to have you for the kickoff for this year's events. It's going to be a great panel for you today, and really a great opportunity for you guys to learn how this might fit in with your story and how an international opportunity can both, build you towards your future goals and maybe be great learning experiences for you today. So from the Career Center, just a brief introduction to our philosophy, and maybe inviting you to open your mind to a way to maybe view the panel today and going forward with your international experiences. We have a model we like to call I-Plan, which really means integrating your own story with the communities you start to explore both on campus and maybe in an international opportunity. And through that, that's how you really get to be able to present yourself to employers in the future, whether that be for international career opportunities, or even right now today for an international opportunity in the summer or otherwise. And today, as you're listening to the wonderful panel we have, and maybe reading, on the handouts that we have, some of the stories of students from the past who have really had a lot of great international experience. See how that might fit in with your story and what you're hoping to, gain from an international experience. Because it's not just getting to that point; it's how do you make sense of that experience once you come back. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about what these international experiences could mean for you, and maybe some myths on how about getting that experience and what that really means. So again, we've had a great partnership with the International Center here in our 10th year doing these. It's really been wonderful partnering with them. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Bill Nolting, who will come up and introduce our panel for us. And Bill Nolting from the International Center.
Thanks. We're really pleased to see good turnout for this session. It is our 10th year of this series of events, sponsored by 12 units across campus. If you have a chance to look at the series that will come, that can help you zero in on sessions of particular interest to you. They're quite variable in terms of what they cover. Some are student panels, and they focus on how to get an internship, for example, and others are about our presentations by people in mid-career, such as the career opportunities for foreign language students, or the global environmental careers, or the careers in global health. All feature people in mid-career, and they talk about how they got to where they are today. So keep those in mind. Let me ask, how many of you here are seniors? And other undergraduates who aren't seniors? Okay, and graduate students? A few graduate students. So I think that there should be something for all of you here. This particular panel focuses more on the undergraduate opportunities, but we will talk a little bit about graduate opportunities. And you can see that the second session, for example, is specifically for graduate students in terms of strategies for finding an internship or a research opportunity in the summer. Most of the sessions will be, I think, of equal interest to undergraduate and graduate students and seniors. But I wanted to go over some of the kind of misconceptions about international work, and hopefully I can give you a little bit of good news and bad news, or bad news and good news. So one is the idea that you can obtain a career position overseas right after you graduate. And I won't say it's completely impossible, and in fact, we do have an example of a person on our international career paths, and these are bios of students. The next last one, information technology. Alex was in charge of our Peace Corps office, and he actually did walk right into an international career position right after he graduated, but he graduated with a master's in information. He'd already been in Peace Corps, so he had a lot of international experience before he got that position. And I think that's really the one theme of this series of events, that it's not easy to walk right into a career position after you graduate, but it is easy to find ways to work abroad, which tend to be through special programs These programs might be an internship for a summer or semester, or they might be as long as something like the Peace Corps, which typically takes a little more than 2 years. So that's the good news. And basically, when you look at an international career position, ultimately the employer will want to see experience abroad, and preferably working abroad. So it's that catch-22. How do you get that experience? Unfortunately, it is easy to get experience while you're a student or right after you graduate. A second myth is the idea that you can work anywhere in the world, just like you would here at home. Well, every country is trying to prevent foreigners from coming to their country and working. So that's the obstacle you face. They love to have you as a tourist or as a student, because then you're contributing money to their economy. But if you're working, you're potentially taking someone else's job. So you'll need to have a skill that is wanted in that country. One skill that recent graduates have is English as their native language, and so teaching English is one of the relatively easy to find positions after you graduate. But some of the other differences working in another country compared to here would be wages. So there are countries where you might earn $1 an hour as a citizen of that country, or even $1 a day. It's a poor country. So if you go there as an American, would you expect to be paid much more than a local person? Probably not. And if you were, that would probably be resented by the local people. So those are some of the sort of facts about the nature of employment markets around the world. And the other thing is that you will normally need a work permit to be able to work in another country, legally at least. And if you work illegally, you could be deported. One example of that is Great Britain, where we have had students sent home on the next plane who arrived, even for an unpaid internship, because they arrived without a work permit. There are ways to get work permits to do student activities, and we can certainly help you with that. Another myth is that you can make more money working abroad than in the U.S. I'd say, generally speaking, that simply is not true. You can usually do much better here. And when you move abroad, you'll have the extra expenses involved in that move. So that's another drawback. There are some exceptions to it. So notably teaching English in a relatively well-off country like Japan. That is a place where you probably can do as well or better in that position than you would in a first hire position here in this country. And then the other case would be if you're hired by a U.S. company and then sent abroad by the company. That's what they call an expat assignment abroad. And those positions pay very well, but it's unlikely that you'll walk right into that after college. Usually they'll want you to have 5, 10 years experience before they'll send you abroad, because you really would have to have expert skills for them to spend $100,000 or $200,000 to send you abroad. Then another, I guess, myth would be you can get a better or more professional internship here in this country than you can abroad. And I'd say that would be true in one sense. You could get a better internship in this country if you wanted to work for a specific employer and you're targeting them. The way that employers in the U.S. use internships is kind of as a test run for a future employee. So that could be a powerful motivation for doing an internship in this country. On the other hand, if you do an internship abroad, often there'll be more responsibility in that position, and you'll learn a lot more in terms of having to deal with another culture and learning to function in that culture. However, it's unlikely that the employer you're working for would be your future employer. I mean, for a lot of reasons. Even if it's a U.S. corporation, you'd be working for their branch in another country. It's not the same branch that would hire you in this country. So it's less of a direct connection between gaining the international experience and the career position. Another idea is American companies located abroad want to hire U.S. citizens. Would you think that would be true or not? Nope. Yeah, you're right. And you can think of, say Honda in this country. If they filled up their plants and even their management positions with Japanese employees, that would not look good. They want to look as American as they can. And when American companies are abroad, likewise, they hire as many local people as they can. there are exceptions even to that rule. So the U.S. State Department, the diplomatic branch of the U.S. government can only hire U.S. citizens, and so that's who they're looking for, and they will send them abroad. And then the Peace Corps is a special program of the U.S. government, which likewise is only for U.S. citizens. So if you're looking for something which would be shorter term, like an internship, we would recommend first looking at many of the programs that are out there, and many of these will be coming to the International Opportunities Fair on October 25th. Most of them have fees. However, there's very generous funding support available from University of Michigan, and there will be a session about funding for internships and research abroad, which will be October 29th, and we can also assist with that here at the International Center. Then finally, companies value employees who have international experience. Well, there is something to that. In a recent study in 2011, 60% of the employers said that they do value international experience in their new hires for career positions. However, you have to qualify that because they don't value that experience just for its own sake. So the fact that you, say, studied abroad in Paris for a summer or a term, you know, it means something, but you need to be able to explain what that means to the employer in ways that the employer sees as valuable. So you might talk about how you learn to, you know, work together with people who are different than you. You manage to function in that environment. All of those things show your ability to deal with a new situation and a foreign situation. You may end up working in the U.S. in a career position, but you'll often be working with people from other countries, or even you might be assigned abroad from time to time. So you need to sort of talk about your international experience in a way that the employer sees as valuable. So I think we can go to our panel now, and first we have Mackenzie Knowling, who can talk about her own career pathway to this point. Mackenzie is the coordinator for our Peace Corps.
Hi. My name is Mackenzie Knowling. I, like Will said, am the Peace Corps recruiter here on campus. And I guess a little bit about myself. I'm currently a master's student, second year master's student at the Ford School of Public Policy. I'm focusing on international development and gender. And I got my BA in economics and international relations, and that's kind of where I fell into, by chance, an international kind of career and start. So my undergrad university, they had a program for freshmen who applied to do research with a professor after their freshman year. And so I applied, got it, and ended up being paired up with an economics professor who was doing research on the women of the maquiladoras along the border of Mexico. So for that summer, she had just gotten back from a sabbatical, so I was going through all her surveys and helping her input all the data, and kind of had gotten to know, this area with NAFTA and CAFTA and how it affected the U.S. and Mexico economically and socially. And so after that, I then was able to travel with her to Mexico and meet some of the women and see where she had done her research. And so that really kind of sparked my interest in development and working with vulnerable populations. So then I ended up studying abroad in Barcelona, and not really a third world country, but it continued the international experience, and I ended up doing a project on Moroccan immigrants to Barcelona and their treatment and integration into the culture of Spain. And then after that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I didn't really want to go on to grad school quite yet, and working in an office from 9 to 5 didn't really appeal to me as well. So Peace Corps kind of popped up at the perfect time in my life. And for me, it was great because I got to travel internationally. I was doing agricultural marketing, so I was integrating my interest in economics with working with vulnerable populations. So spent 2 years in Guatemala working with small coffee farmers, teaching business practices. Also started work with women's groups and doing nutrition and health, family gardening, and also building smoke alleviating stoves. So then Peace Corps came, again, wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. Non-competitive eligibility, applied to a couple of government jobs, Ended up in DC, realized I did not like working 9 to 5, so I decided to come back to grad school. So in grad school, as I said, I've been focusing kind of on the international development and gender aspect of international policy and human rights. So this summer, I ended up getting an internship with UN Women in Ethiopia. And so, I really think my experience with the Peace Corps and studying abroad is what helped me get there, along with the name of Michigan, of course. So this summer, I was doing an assessment on the leadership and participation within Ethiopia. They are kind of still expanding their projects, so it was interesting getting to work with a lot of different NGOs and a lot of different government organizations, such as the Ministry of Women, the Ministry of Justice, and their economic ministry as well. But through this, I feel like I gained a lot of experience, and I have to say, you guys are way ahead of me. Like, I did not attend events like this in undergrad. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll find my way in life. But this is a great step, because I think you really have to think about your international career. Like Bill said, you can't just jump into it after undergrad. I mean, you may have a connection that you can, like that's great, but the majority of people are not going to get an international career right out of undergrad. Even for me, I'm a little worried not having enough international experience to actually get an international job at this point. A lot of them are looking for a master's degree, and a lot of them are looking for 3 years plus experience. And the reason they want the 3 years is like they want to know you can hack it. Even though I have lived in Guatemala for 2 years, like Ethiopia was not the easiest thing that I did this summer. Like one place might have peanut butter and the next place doesn't. You know, the next place, I knew Spanish before I went, so I could find out where the post office was. In Ethiopia, like I did not speak one word of Amharic. Like people are pointing me in the wrong direction and walking all over the city. So it's hard. You have to really be committed to an international career. You have to know it's what you want to do, and you have to, do the steps that are necessary to get there, which may be taking an unpaid internship, finding funding on campus. There's a lot of resources for those kind of things. I'd also suggest, and this is my personal opinion, other people can challenge me on this, but I would say not to get an advanced degree right away. Figure out what you want to do. Lots of people are looking to fill very specific roles, especially internationally, because they don't want to just send a generalist abroad. So know what you want to do. Go out there, experience things, find out what you like. Mine definitely changed. I'm not as interested in economics anymore, and I'm a lot more interested in gender and the social roles that women play in society. And then also, I mean, you guys have already self-selected that you're interested in international. I mean, we're living in a globalized world, and what I always say is, how can you work and live in a globalized world without ever really experiencing it? So even if you decide you want to work in the US, having that international experience is going to look really good to employers. You're going to learn how to work with people who you have nothing in common with. You might not even share the language, that you just build so many skills, such as resourcefulness, being able to communicate. Patience is a big one too, I think, when you live abroad. And then I guess my last comment would be to the wages. A number of people who I talked to this summer who are working for NGOs were actually making a lot of money. They might have only had a salary of $32,000 a year, but their organization was paying for their living expenses. They were paying for them to go home twice a year. They were paying for their health insurance and all of that, and so they were essentially pocketing $32,000 a year. But I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find people who were actually making that much money outside of expenses here in the U.S. So, go out, experience the world. I guess plug for Peace Corps. I think it's 2 years, kind of on the government's dime to get experience, live someplace else, understand what hardship is, and so, yeah.
Thank you, Mackenzie. My name is Kelly Nelson, and I also work in the International Center's Education Abroad office. Before I introduce our next few speakers, I'm going to talk to you all for a few minutes about a program called the Michigan International Internship and Service Program. It's relatively new, but has anyone here heard of it before? A couple people? Awesome. Okay. Has anyone heard of the Public Service Internship Program through the Career Center? Okay. All right. Well, the reason I was asking is because our program, MIISP, is modeled after the Career Center's Public Service Internship Program. But basically, the Michigan International Internship, MIISP for short, because it's quite a mouthful, is a preparatory program for undergraduate students who are interested in doing an international internship or an international service project over the summer. So throughout the course of the academic year, the students who are accepted into MIISP go through a series of preparatory workshops during which we talk to them about how to find international internships, whether it be through programs through U of M or maybe outside of U of M, how to navigate the funding atmosphere here. Like Bill said, there's lots of funding on campus, but it's just a matter of finding it and learning how to write a strong funding statement. So we work on stuff like that. And then we also, especially during the winter semester, have a series of like cross-cultural workshops that students go through. So it's, again, basically a three-phase program. There's the preparatory phase during the academic year. Then when you go abroad, you're obviously doing your experience, and then we ask you to blog while you're abroad. And then when you get back, you act as kind of like a peer advisor to the next cohort. And this year, we are also going to be implementing aspects of the M-Portfolio program into our curriculum. So we're really excited about that. If that sounds at all intriguing to you, I would highly recommend attending our information session, which is tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the Michigan Union Wolverine Room. And you may have noticed like the neon green little quarter sheets out there. That's what that is all about. So take a look at it. We would definitely love to have you all apply. The students that I'm actually about to introduce are actually all past participants of the program, so that's very exciting. So they're going to come up one by one and talk a little bit about what they did over the summer. And I do want to clarify that the programs and opportunities that they went through are not at all reserved just for MIISP students. These are opportunities that are open to the entire university community. So the first person I'm going to introduce is Celine, who's going to talk to us a little bit about her experiences with GIU.
Hello, so what I'm going to be talking to you all about is an opportunity for if you are a student that's going to be returning next fall. If you're not returning next fall, this opportunity sadly doesn't apply, but that doesn't mean it's not interesting to hear about, I guess. So the Global Intercultural Experience for Undergraduates is a short-term opportunity that's led through the Center for Global and Intercultural Study here at the university. And it's a month-long program in the summer where either a team of 2 professors or a professor and a student leader who has done the program before takes a group of 15 to 20 students abroad to a field site where they will do some sort of service or research project or a combination of the both in a community where you are integrated into the community. You stay with homestays most of the time, and it's a really great program because it has a large variety. Once you enter the program, the field sites are all over the world with programs ranging from biological basis to the social work basis. So it has a large variety that appeals to many different students with different backgrounds. And I personally think it's great to start young in this program. I was a participant after my freshman year going to Zambia to do HIV/AIDS workshops in the local communities. And then I recently this summer went as a student fellow helping a professor in Ghana doing a project at the Palace in Kumasi, helping digitalize their VHS to digital so that they would last longer and store better. So what's great about this program is that you can be a part of it as a participant, and then you have the opportunity that if you showed leadership skills and they think that you'd be promising as a student fellow, they can nominate you to be a part of the program again in the future as an assistant to the professor. And that is what I did as a part of my MIISP role as an internship this past year. So another thing that I just want to mention real fast though is that what's great about GIU is that it gives you this really good base and foundation of international experience. So they do a very good job of training you and preparing you for intercultural communication and just how to deal with going abroad. And so I did it after my freshman year, then leading to me to study abroad for a semester my sophomore year, where I was able to do an internship for credit in Argentina, and then I came back and was able to be a student fellow for the program. So if it wasn't for doing GIU as a freshman, I wouldn't have taken that same path. One other thing is funding for this program is very likely to receive. If you receive a Pell Grant. You will find it extremely cost-effective, let alone that it's cost-effective to begin with, one of the most cost-effective study abroad programs offered at the university. And also there's the LSA scholarship, which a lot of students from GIU do receive. And so it's very common to receive that as a GIU participant. So I guess that's the basics. I hope I covered it all and not too quickly for y'all so you can catch it, but that was it. Thank you.
I really want to second something that Celine said about how it's a really great foundation and that it leads to study abroad and things beyond, because I don't know how often I hear from the students who are in my office looking into study abroad or Peace Corps or teaching English abroad that they actually participated in GIU after their freshman or sophomore year. So it's a really excellent program, so thank you for sharing. Our next speaker is going to be speaking about a very different opportunity. Rebecca interned with the U.S. Department of State in Paris, France. So she is going to talk to you a little bit about that program.
My name is Rebecca. I'm currently a junior. I'm studying Romance languages and international studies. Like Kelly said, I did an internship with the State Department this summer. I was posted over in Paris. I was actually not at the U.S. Embassy there, but the U.S. mission to the OECD. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of the OECD. It's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So it's actually, very, very well known all over the world. But in the U.S. it's not very well known. So actually, out of all the international organizations the U.S. is a part of, we put the most funding into the UN, and after that is the OECD. So it was a very unique State Department internship in that I was at a multilateral organization, because the majority is going to be at U.S. embassies all over the world, which is bilateral. So it was a little bit different, but our office, the U.S. mission, was run like an embassy. We had our ambassador, we had diplomats, and the support staff, a PR office, which was just made up of one person, but it was a pretty sizable office. So I really enjoyed my internship for a variety of reasons. One of the main things I think is, as interns, you don't expect to be given much independence, much responsibility in the workplace. And you might think maybe I'm just going to be there to pour the coffee, to print out papers, and take out the trash. But this internship was really amazing because the diplomats, the people you're working with, they're really, really committed to your future, and they really want to provide you with a great experience, not only with the State Department, but something that will be really beneficial to you and relevant to your own career. So we had a lot of freedom. We were able to do some research projects, and they trusted us to write cables to Washington and go to meetings where we would be reporting on issues relevant politically, economically, all over the world. So it was also really interesting to be able to work with delegates from the 34 member countries of the OECD. And I think that just added to the international experience, because although the people in my workplace, they were all Americans, I got to interact with international diplomats at the OECD. And so this internship is for both undergrads and grad students. You just have to be returning to campus in the fall. I also highly recommend you to look into the OECD either as interns or as a permanent worker there, because it is an amazing place to work, and they have positions for all kinds of fields. And they're also looking to hire more Americans, and the U.S. government is really promoting that also, and they actually don't get that many qualified people applying for their positions, because I guess most Americans aren't interested in working internationally, unlike you guys. So that was my internship, and as for the personal experience that I had being in Paris, it wasn't a hardship post by any means. But actually, when you go to somewhere like Paris, you expect to have a nice, comfortable life, and you can be surprised at how hard even a place like Paris you to a foreign country and you don't speak the language completely fluently. So I suggest just, be prepared, go with an open mind, and also when you're doing things like short-term internships or 1 or 2 year positions like the diplomats do, it's easy to be comfortable just staying within your workplace, or if you're studying abroad, the classmates that you're studying with, and it's not as easy to go out and make local friends, but that's one of the things that I would highly recommend, because when I was in Paris, one of the best experiences about being there was making all the friends locally that introduced me to the true French culture and, took me to all the places that I would never have known to go. So that was a really, really good experience for me. I actually did a language exchange program, so there are lots of things like that all over that you can participate in. And coming back here, I am not sure what I'm doing with the rest of my life, but I'm open to continuing in the foreign service. I'm hoping to get a grad degree, probably in international relations, and I would love to go abroad to do that. And I also suggest, like Mackenzie did, to get a few years of international experience or even just work or volunteer experience under your belt before going into a grad program, because that just helps you shape your entire international career. And consider the State Department as a career, because they're absolutely great. They're full of the most intelligent and successful and educated people that I've ever had the chance to work with. So, yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Rebecca. If any of you are considering applying for an internship with the U.S. Department of State, please note that the application deadline is very, very early. So it's November 1st, and the application is rather involved. You have to write an essay and things like that. So definitely take a look at that. And there will also be a session as part of the International Career Pathways series, all about internships with the U.S. Department of State, and that's listed on the International Career Pathways list that you all have. And then one thing that I don't want to forget to mention is that the University of Michigan is really lucky to actually have a diplomat in residence here. He's a career foreign service officer who is posted at the University of Michigan to promote opportunities for internships as well as careers in the foreign service. And his office is located in the Ford School, but he is here to serve, well, actually the whole state, but especially University of Michigan students. So absolutely take advantage of him. During the process, the internship application process, he is more than happy to look over applications, and in the past he's even tracked changes and really helped people. So take advantage of his services. He's here to help you. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Deschaine. Oh, she's over here, sorry. Liz went to Madrid through a program called Cultural Vistas. So just a couple of things about Cultural Vistas before she begins. It's actually affiliated with the University of Michigan through our German department. So if you're a German speaker, please note that this program offers many opportunities for you, including summer internships as well as a whole host of postgraduate fellowships. So be sure to look into it. And there is also a Cultural Vistas representative in the German department, and her contact information is at the very top of the agenda. Her name is Peggy Gundervall Jensen, PW Jensen at UMich.org. EDU. Sorry. I'm going to sit down now and turn the floor over to Liz.
Hi, so my name is Liz. I am a senior now, and I'm studying economics and international studies. So basically, like Kelly said, we're all alumni of MIISP. So at the start of my sophomore year, I hadn't really done anything exciting this summer after my freshman year. I was like, why didn't I do anything? So I knew I wanted to do something, and I joined MIISP. And with the help of Kelly and Bill, they kind of just found me this program. So it's called Cultural Vistas. It used to be called CDS, so that's what I say. That's what I'm referring to. Basically, well, my first advice is apply early, because I remember applying in October and November for this program. And I think the final deadline was in January, but it came up really, really quick. So what they did is they worked with what I was studying and my employment at U of M, and they found me an internship that kind of combined all of that. So I had the opportunity to work for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. So every country has a branch, and I was in Spain, and I worked in the Madrid office. So it was actually a very small office. It wasn't like this big like UN headquarters. It was just in this office building. There were like 10 women and me. None of them were Americans. None of them, well, they ended up speaking English, I found out, but none of them spoke English to me at all since like the minute I walked in. So I was immediately immersed in Spanish. The good thing about Cultural Vistas is that they've had interns before and they have connections. So I never would have gotten this great internship if it wasn't for going through a program. And because the UNHCR had already had an intern actually from U of M before me, they were prepared for me. They like knew what I could kind of handle as an intern, as someone who didn't really speak Spanish that great because I went into it with very poor language skills. So I had specific jobs. I got to go to like benefit concerts and cool events with like public officials, and I got to sit in on like international meetings. So it was really, really cool to see like the workings of an NGO. And they kind of did their own thing. I didn't really feel like I was working for the UN because they didn't really like the UN. They just kind of wanted to practice their own policies, and I kind of learned how that worked. So I learned a lot at the internship. As far as the program Cultural Vistas, when you guys are looking for programs, make sure that you look at the kind of things they offer. So for instance, Cultural Vistas doesn't offer housing, which was kind of a sign that my hand wasn't going to be held along the way. So I had to find my own housing, like on Spanish Craigslist. It was really difficult. I ended up getting an apartment through a friend of an ex-boyfriend of a friend. Like, it was crazy, but I found it, and that was an experience in itself. And when I got there, there was only 2 other students in the entire program, so I wasn't given like a batch of friends to hang out with. And I lived with some Spaniards in the city, and it was just very like, I was very much on my own and just kind of thrown into the experience, and I got to make my own experience out of it. So you have to be really independent, you have to be prepared to kind of fend for yourself and learn how things work on your own, but I grew so much more because it was like that and no one was guiding me the entire way. But that is a big asset of the program, and it's just something to think about when you're looking. And then as far as what it did for like my personal experiences, as soon as I got back, starting my junior year, I was already looking for another way to go abroad. So it just like really inspired me. I went to South America this past summer, and just because I wanted to keep it going, and you start to learn about what you get when you go abroad, you just get so much more. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to talk about Cultural Vistas. I don't know anything about the German program, but I can talk about the Spanish ones. That's all.
Thanks, Liz. Now I'm going to turn the floor over to Christie Donahue, who's a grad student in the School of Social Work, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about opportunities to go abroad in a work abroad capacity through U of M student organizations.
I'm Christie. Kelly said I'm a grad student in the School of Social Work, and I guess before I got here I didn't really know I was talking about student organizations, so I have this whole, my career pathway in international work all laid out, but I'm going to start with student orgs now, so that's why I have so many notes here. So the student org that I've been involved with for 6 years is called Sanima Collaborative. It's a student-led service learning organization on campus that works all year to plan projects for international service learning project that we do either over spring break or in the summer or both. And I guess, so what sets this organization apart from one of the more U of M sponsored organizations is that we are completely student-led, so we just meet once a week we have like 15 members or so. We chat about Guatemala is where we go for our service learning, and we learn about what the context of service learning is, international development, all of these sort of worldly things related to international work. And then we get right down and talk about the community that we're partnered with there and the nonprofit we work with there, and what kinds of projects would be appropriate. And really a lot of critical thinking goes into what we would actually go and do abroad. So there are plenty of student organizations on campus that do this too. Sanima is just one example. We have a listserv, which I haven't been working on as well this year, of all of the student organizations that go abroad. And they're located all over the campus. There are some that are more specifically engineering. There are some that are more specifically social work or LS&A or medical focused. Sanima tries to sort of encompass all of those things in order to meet the needs of the community we work with, because we really take more of a community approach. So if you're interested in any of those student orgs, I'm happy to talk about them too, or sort of direct you to ones that might be relevant to what you're interested in. But I guess the reason I'm talking about student orgs is because my work with Sanima has really sort of catapulted me into this international career. When I came to the University of Michigan, I was planning on going straight to vet school afterward. I just wanted to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. I wanted to work with them. I studied engineering as an undergrad, biomedical engineering, to sort of get the medical classes under my belt. But my work with Sanima gave me an opportunity to have leadership experiences right away. Second semester I was in the organization. They were already having me in charge of finances, and then I was involved in the organizational planning and critical decision making for the org. And that really developed my leadership skills throughout my undergrad career. And I found myself, when I was graduating and I had gotten accepted to Michigan State Vet School, realizing that I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. I really had to question myself. And I decided to take a year off to really make sure I knew what I was doing. I had no idea what social work is, so I wasn't even thinking about it at that point. I wasn't thinking about an international career. I was like, oh, that was great. That's it. I knew I wanted to continue volunteering abroad, but never international career focus. And so I found a job at the hospital for that year off, kind of wanted to stick around Ann Arbor, loved Ann Arbor. I ended up staying in Sanima, even though I wasn't a student anymore, and sort of taking on even more of this leadership role, trying to coordinate all of the student orgs that go abroad into one central organization of leaders that come together. So all of that exciting involvement and talking to mentors like Kelly and Bill, and people at the Ginsberg Center on campus, they started saying, oh, you sound like a social worker. And I was like, I don't know what a social worker is. I always thought of them as like the counselors in schools. And then I realized that there's this field of community organizing, and they do really community-based work, but there are also opportunities for international work within that. And I really saw a pathway for myself to be able to continue the work that I had been doing in Guatemala with Sanima or on my own. So I applied to the School of Social Work, got into the Global Scholars Program. So this past summer, I did my internship for that in South Africa through another program called Cross-Cultural Solutions, which we haven't talked about yet. It's a placement organization also for international either volunteering or internship experiences. So that's a whole other story, but also a very much recommended program, and we can certainly give some advice on that in the International Center if anybody's interested in it. But now my future turns out it's going to be international work. So when I graduate in December, I'm going to be going back to Guatemala to work with Casacito, which is the organization that Sanima works with down there. Just through this partnership with them, we've really developed a relationship, and they have a need, and I have a skill now, and we're going to be able to merge that together. I guess talking about the wages, though, I mean, it's not really going to be a paid job. It's going to be a job abroad. They're going to support me with living expenses and the food and everything, but I will be earning money while I'm there. But I can get through, a couple years with sort of no expenses, not gaining, not losing, and it'll get me some really good experience. And then I realized, going abroad so often, that I don't really want to work abroad long term. I'd really like to be in the U.S. I was in Guatemala for 6 months. It was my longest time away, and I have so much respect for Peace Corps volunteers. I was there for 6 weeks this summer, and I was ready to come home, when I was done. So that's another reason I would really recommend student organizations. You kind of get your feet wet. You go abroad for 1 week, 2 weeks, You can do one of these programs where you could get abroad for maybe 12 weeks during the summer, a few months. It'll really give you an idea if it's something that you can handle or if it's what you really want to do. I had some probably other notes. Some skills, I guess, before I finish here. I think one of the most important skills, sort of through this whole experience, was self-awareness. Like when you're abroad, it really makes you think about the assumptions you make about other places, how you learn, how you interact with people. So I guess there's a big plug that I would make for really being intentional before you go abroad. No matter what program you do, sit down before you leave and write some goals for yourself. What do you want to achieve for yourself, for the work that you're going to be doing there? And then maybe halfway through your experience, look at those goals and see, have I achieved these? Do I want to revise them? And then when you come back, you can either check them all off and say, look at the great work I did. You can write down your other accomplishments. And that'll really help you too with jobs in the future. You can say, hey, look, these are the goals I set for myself. I achieved them. This is how I did it. And that's really what helped me to sort of get into this career path. I looked at the work I had done with Sunny Mom and was like, oh, I achieved that. Let me move on to the next thing now.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite to the floor Professor Criso from the Department of Romance Languages, who's going to talk to us a little bit about opportunities to do internships in French-speaking countries as well as Turkey.
Hi everybody. As Kelly said, I'm Rachel Criso. I've been a professor here at Michigan for over 20 years. And for the last 12, I've been placing students in internships, beginning with France because I speak French. But then we branched out with the business school and we added a few other countries to our list. In a big way, Turkey. We've also worked in Singapore and Malaysia and several other places. And Morocco also, we will hear about. I've loved listening to these stories of all these international experiences. I really hope they've motivated you to do the same. This is the time to do this. This is it. Now is the time. These summers, there's 2, maybe 3 summers you've got here. Make the most of them. And international, as you can hear, it's the way to go. It gives you skills that other people coming out of undergrad do not have. It gives you, even if you're not going to use the specific experience in your job, that you get eventually, it shows that you are adaptable. It shows that you can step out of your comfort zone. You can relate to people. That you can do all kinds of things. And it gives you a story to tell. When you're sitting in that interview chair, yes, okay, I've got a degree from Michigan, great. Yes, I did this, I did that. But, oh, yeah, I was in Guatemala. And they go, oh, really? And suddenly you've got this great story to tell. And as Bill said, it's important to be able to articulate why that is a good story to tell. So you will need to work on that too. But you need to have the story first. And also, let's not confuse study abroad with work abroad. Study abroad is great, and yes, everybody should study abroad, great. But working abroad is something completely different. And I think not only because of the experience you get doing that, and the experience you bring away from it, but it's about what these skills we've been talking about. It's about how it can change you, how living in another country can be really difficult. It can be hard being alone. It can be hard not knowing the language, not knowing how to use the post office, not knowing how to go and do your laundry, all of those things. I've been doing this 20 years. I've placed over, doing this 12 years. I've placed over 120 students, I think. None of them have ever come back and gone, oh, I can't believe I did that. It was a waste of time. Nobody has said that. Everybody comes back. Some people come back and say it was hard. Other people come back and say it was a total riot, the whole thing. It depends, but it's a good thing. So, like I said, I run the U of M-based programs that do not have a fee, believe it or not. Most of them are unpaid, although some of them are paid. And I placed 50 students last year in France, French-speaking countries, and Turkey together. If you go to France on my program, you need to be able to speak French. Rebecca, for Turkey, you do not. You can do the work in English. So we have an application deadline. It's going to be December 1st. It's not on here yet. This program is now through LS&A, and I'm going to ask Bill and Kelly to put this on their emails that they send out so that when we have our first information session, you'll see it in there. So I'm really lucky tonight to have Kevin Binder with me. Kevin has had the incredible foresight or something to do both of my programs. I don't know how that happened. It's great. He went to Turkey 2 summers ago, and then he went to Morocco last summer, so he's going to tell you about his experiences.
Hey, how's it going? I'm good, no answer. Well, yeah, as introduced, I'm here to talk about my experiences in Turkey and Morocco. I'll just start with Turkey because that's where I went to first. There I was working in Ankara, which is the capital, and I was teaching for a private institution called Tobe University. And as mentioned, I was set up through the program here at University of Michigan. And it was a really cool experience because I was teaching students my own age pretty much. So my job technically was to teach English pretty much every day. I led extracurricular activities. That was, like movie clubs, speaking clubs, we had darts club, we had ping pong club. So it was just a whole bunch of different things that really emphasized speaking English in informal settings. And the cool thing about that is it really allowed me to spend time with my students outside of the classroom. And almost all of them spoke English at a very, very high level. So that made it very easy to connect with them and see what their life was like. On top of that, I actually lived in the student dorms when I was teaching at Tobe. So I lived down the hall right next door to all of my students. And as a result, I spent time with them outside the classroom. I traveled with some of my students, and some of them even welcomed me into their homes, which was really cool. But I'll get to this sort of idea of cultural immersion later. In Morocco, it was in some ways the complete opposite, because I was working in Rabat, again, the capital of Morocco, and I was working at a low-income children's center called the Donahue Association. And that was a really amazing experience because I was teaching 5-year-olds who had no prior English experience. So that definitely made it really difficult because in order to communicate something to my students, I would have to think of what I wanted to say, translate that to French, tell that to the teachers who were normally there, who didn't speak English but spoke French, so that they could translate it to Arabic, so they could relay that information to the students. So it was just this constant sort of like workaround, which in the end made it so much more rewarding because I knew that whatever they learned was really a product of my hard work, and it's really something that it's something that I've never before experienced, and I couldn't recommend it anymore. When I was in Morocco, I was living with a host family actually, and that was really cool because I got to see what the Moroccan family life was like. I was living with 2 host brothers, one of which was 2 years old and one of which was 8. So it was a pretty wild household, and I had a great time. But I got to eat meals with the family. I got to sleep in the same room as them, and it was just they welcomed me into their home so much to a complete degree. And to go off of that, I would just say the main reason why I'm here right now telling you that you should go abroad, and especially go to a Middle Eastern country like Morocco or Turkey, is because the chance for cultural immersion is so great in those countries. Because people are so open about just letting people in and talking to people. As I said, in Morocco I had a host family, and I was part of the family for 6 weeks, and no questions asked, that was it. In Turkey, it was not uncommon for complete strangers to just stop whatever they're doing and help us out, either by taking us around town, by welcoming us into their homes, or by just giving us directions and saying, oh, that's a great restaurant to go to, you should definitely do that. Actually, twice while I was in Turkey, I was offered rides from random strangers that I pretty much had to accept because it seemed polite not to. Which, I think that was a really cool thing because it made me feel uncomfortable, but I liked that because I knew that my discomfort was really a cultural phenomenon, and it's only because I wasn't used to that in the United States. So being there really helped me expand my comfort zone, and made me learn a lot about myself that I was then able to take back to the United States, and that's definitely something I talk about in a job interview. So do it. I mean, apply to the program through U of M to go either, be it Turkey, be it France, be it pretty much anywhere. Do it right now. And by the way, this shirt, I got it in Turkey for $14.
I just want to hop in and say real quick is it's been really amazing hearing everyone speak, and I hope you out there are seeing kind of the authenticity that they're speaking with and how they've learned so much from these experiences. And like what Bill was talking about in the opening and what's been kind of harped on these last few times is that it's not just going abroad that gives you this learning experience, it's really reflecting on it and seeing what it meant and what aspects of it really meant a lot for the students. So that's something to keep in mind as you go forth. And you know, I'm ready to go abroad now, so we'll be in coach. So once you guys all go abroad and come back, just that's something to keep in mind too.
Now we're going to shift gears a bit and talk about a couple of postgraduate opportunities. So with that, I'm going to invite to the floor once again Mackenzie Knowling to talk about Peace Corps.
Okay, yeah, like I said before, I'm also the Peace Corps recruiter here on campus. So Peace Corps is a 2-year commitment. I guess I should say Peace Corps is a government agency that's for American citizens to serve abroad for 2 years. And I think we're in 78 locations right now, but it kind of changes depending on safety and security issues. Yeah, so they send you abroad to a specific country, you're placed in a specific project area, and then you're also given a site to live in for 2 years. Sorry, I keep losing my train of thought. It's been a very long day of classes and meetings and other stuff. So yeah, it's a great opportunity, like I said, to get some work experience abroad. Peace Corps pays for everything. You're planning to get there, you're planning to get back, 3 months of language training, 3 months of technical training. You get a monthly stipend. All of your health insurance is covered. When you get back, you get $7,500 for your adjustment allowance. You get non-competitive eligibility for government jobs for a year. Another great thing is that they have these fellowships and Masters Internationals programs. So I'm currently a fellow here at the Ford School, which means that I get tuition money. So that's another great benefit. Our Masters Internationals is that you actually incorporate your Peace Corps service for credit into your master's program. So you can find all of these on the website. We also have office hours, so you can come in, ask questions, and we are having our first information session of the year on Tuesday at 6:30 in the International Center. So application process, you can talk to other returning Peace Corps volunteers, hear about their experience, what they thought was great, the challenges, and all of that. So if you have any questions afterwards, you can keep me.
In Asia, specifically in China and South Korea. You'll find that academic year-long teaching programs do offer some sort of compensation for teachers. So whether that be an actual salary or a monthly stipend, or at the very least, free room and board, most of the academic year-long programs are going to pay you in some way, shape, or form. So that's definitely a benefit. I mentioned that there are some programs out there for which you need to pay a fee, and then they organize everything for you. There are also many government-sponsored programs out there that don't have any program fees. The Fulbright program, which I mentioned, is through the U.S. Department of State, and that's an option for teaching in countries all around the world. Unfortunately, the deadline for the 2013-2014 academic year just passed on September 10th. That's to apply through the University of Michigan. But if you look into the Fulbright program and are really passionate about something you see, I would recommend that you still apply at large. You can apply independent from the University of Michigan, and that deadline is mid-October. So it's a lengthy application process, kind of like applying to graduate school, but it's absolutely worth it. It's a fabulous program. Some other countries that have government-sponsored teaching assistantships, just to give you an idea, include France, Spain, Chile, the Republic of Georgia, which is kind of exciting. Those are some of the main ones. Oh, another big one is JET, which is through the Japanese government. So if you have any interest in going to Japan, that's one to look into because it also has a very early application deadline. I believe all applications need to be received at the consulate by like December 1st. So that's another really great one to look at. And none of those have program fees, which is really great. Because the title of this presentation is Myths and Opportunities, I should probably debunk a couple of myths about teaching English abroad. You don't need to have any sort of teaching certification to participate in most of these programs. So for most of the programs that we advise on, the minimum requirements include that you're a native speaker of English, and that if it's a year-long program, they're almost always going to want you to have a bachelor's degree. So those tend to be the two minimum requirements. In some cases, you'll see that the programs are looking for people with relevant experience. That doesn't mean that you've had to have taught a class before. Relevant experience might be things like participating in tutoring, or even like leading a student organization, or all of the things that our panelists have talked about. Another myth is that you need to speak a foreign language in order to teach English abroad. And that's not always true either, especially for the programs that are in Asia. Most of the programs that we advise on in Asia actually don't require that you know the host country language. So that makes those opportunities open to a lot of people. If you're applying for programs in Europe, say through the Fulbright program, or in Latin America, or in a Spanish-speaking country, I think you'll find that most of those regions and countries are going to want you to at least be somewhat conversational or proficient in the host country language, just because they're more commonly taught languages. Deadlines really vary, so I really can't say when exactly all of these are due. I mentioned that the JET program through the Japanese government has that really early deadline of December 1st. The Fulbright program is super early on September 10th. The rest of the programs are really going to vary. There will be some deadlines early in winter semester or mid-winter semester. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, my best advice to you would be to come to the International Center, because we have a packet about that. And in many cases, we know people who have done a lot of these programs, so we could even hook you up with a graduate student who may have done that in between undergrad and graduate school. So that would be a big recommendation. My other recommendation to you would be to attend the International Opportunities Fair. So that fair is kind of like a study abroad fair, but all of the organizations there have some sort of work abroad focus. So all of the organizations that you heard from today, they're going to be there, plus like 50 more. It's a really big event. It'll be on October 25th from 2 to 6 p.m. in the Michigan Union Ballroom. And many of the teaching programs that I mentioned are also going to be represented there. So it's a really good idea to get an overview of all of the opportunities that are out there. And I think that's it for me with teaching English abroad. Oh yes, and if we're going to take some questions now, but before you leave, if you could fill out your evaluations, that would be fabulous. Does anyone have any, questions for our entire panel, or questions that you'd like to ask aloud? Okay, well, I guess we will close, and if you have individual questions, please feel free to come on up and talk to us. We'll be here for the next few minutes. But thank you all so much for coming. Have a great night. We hope to see you at the remaining International Career Pathways events.